first of all, somebody earlier today asked me if I was a professional speaker and do I do this often? The answer is no.
I put her on the spot.
Yes, and when I walked up and saw my face on the poster, it made me a little intimidated. So anyway, basically I think Elizabeth had seen an article that had been written about a friend and myself who went through what we called a reinvention and created our own reinvention group a couple of years ago. And so because of that story, she had asked me to come here today. And basically what I thought I would do is just share with you what that story is, and then maybe a few the key takeaway points that I learned over the last couple of years because of it, and see where that takes us. So when Elizabeth actually asked me to do this, I was honored, but a little bit nervous because I thought, well, how can my background resonate with this group here? I come from a background where I was in marketing and business development, but for industrial conveyor belting. So it was not a very glamorous, not a very sexy industry, but when I walked into the factory today or through these doors today, I felt much more at home. So I know you can relate. Also, my story is about reinventing yourself by leaving a 20-year career and going on to do something new. I'm not promoting that as something that people do in this room. I'm just sharing with you what the story was, and I think there's the key points that I can take away from that will apply even within an organization itself. And there are many times, like Elizabeth, like you said, where I reinvented myself in that 20 years as well, selling conveyor belting. So just to set the stage, June of 2 years ago, June of 2012, I decided that it was time to leave my company. I had worked there for 20 years. I was burned out. I had traveled quite a bit globally. I had raised 2 kids during that time. I had a husband who traveled a lot globally as well. And I wasn't feeling connected to what it was that I was doing. I worked for a great company. I loved the company. I loved the people, but I was ready for a change. So after much contemplation, I decided that I would leave. I was in a position at the time where I had saved up some money, so I had some money in the bank, and I also had a husband who could fully support us living in Singapore, which is the reason why we're here. He works for Chevron, so that's what brought us to Singapore 3 years ago. So I was in a good position at that time to do what I would call my eat, pray, love. I don't know how many of you are familiar with eat, pray, love. Yeah.
Sound divine.
So I took some time off. I took a sabbatical. My kids and I went to live with my mom for a month in the summertime. I thought, I'm just going to relax. I'm going to enjoy the beach. I'm going to love life. Everything's going to be great. But I found that was a really hard process for me. Just something that had defined me all of my life. This career had defined me all of my life, and it was gone. These people were no longer there. So actually I had a lot of sleepless nights, and all the wheels were spinning still on what it is, what do I need to do? What is the next thing? What is the next thing I need to do? Finally that settled down. I came back to Singapore in August and decided I'm just going to throw myself into things that I think I'm interested in. I have a creative side. You don't get too creative in conveyor belting, so I have this creative side that I wanted to explore. I have this attraction to holistic health and nutrition and all of that. I wanted to explore that. I thought I wanted to create businesses in all of those. So I took art classes. This is over a couple-month period. Took a few art classes, took a film class, took a meditation class, I actually had a Bozzi analysis done on me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but some people probably. And just did all of that kind of exploring of things that I thought that I was truly passionate about. What I discovered was I was passionate about it from a viewpoint, not from a doing it. I didn't want to be an artist. I love art, but I didn't want to be an artist. So that was good learning for me. About that same time in October of that year, I also had started thinking about some other ideas that I had for a business that wasn't fully formed, but kind of in the back of my head. And about that same time, I was invited to go on a hike with a friend our husband, or my husband and her husband, and I and her, she and I. And then another couple who also happened to be from San Francisco that were just recently assigned to the Singapore area. So I met my friend Carol on this hike for the very first time. We talked, instant friends, started talking about some of these things, these ideas, what I'm going through, how I just left my job. She had a long career in the Bay Area with leadership development training that she also had to leave and was ready to leave, actually. And she and we talked, and she said, you know, I've always had this idea that if you could bring together a group of people that were kind of going through this process of, they're in a transition phase, they don't know what the next is. They think about it, but they don't really have accountability to it, or they don't have people to bounce ideas off of. And so she said, wouldn't it be great to have a reinvention group? And I thought, oh my God, this is perfect. This is what I need at this moment in time. I need some support. I need some cheerleaders. I need some sounding boards. I need accountability. So she wasn't quite ready to do this. I hounded her for the next 2 weeks and said, you need to create this group. This is such a great idea. Finally, she gave in and said, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about it. So we sat down. We brainstormed a list of people. It's just, you know, a group of maybe 12 people that were on our list. We put together a mission statement for a reinvention group. We put together some guiding lights that we would like to see for how we would handle this. And we presented that, or sent it out to about 12 people and set up a first meeting. Everybody came. I mean, it was interesting to see how much interest there was in this topic, which this is interesting to see the number of people in this room. So anyway, it was a very diverse group, a little bit of a bent towards the creative side. We had some artists and photographers. You also had somebody in organizational development. You had some, you know, people who were trailing spouses who just wanted to figure out their new way. And we got together and we met, and there was interest. And we first started with the first couple of meetings, thankfully through my friend who was an organizational development person. She helped guide us through what they call life mapping. Is anybody familiar with life mapping? Where you sit down and you actually, on one sheet of paper, write out your whole entire journey, graphically represent your entire journey in your life, and sort of look for where the similarities lie. Like what is the what is the theme that comes through in all of that? And that kind of helped to narrow the path a little bit. It also helped us to understand each other, because a lot of the people in this group were virtual strangers. You know, it was like some of my friends, it was some of her friends, but they were from all different areas. So it helped us to understand what each other's needs are and areas of focus. And so we did that. We did a little bit of, she also is a Myers-Briggs expert. Is anybody familiar with Myers-Briggs? Where you do personality testing. So we each did a little bit of Myers-Briggs, which I had done in my previous career as well. And she helped lead us through some discussions on that. And then it was, okay, so what's our next step from here? So we decided, again, because it had more of a creative bent, that we would follow an 8-week program called The Artist's Way, which helps you, each week it has something that you read, and then it has exercises for you to do. It asks you to write down your thoughts every single morning, 3 pages of thoughts every single morning, which has been extremely useful. It's amazing how just dumping all of that stuff out of your head sometimes helps. And so we fought, and then you get together, you discuss it, and in that process, I came to learn that what I wanted to do was I definitely wanted to be involved in a for-profit business arena. That's where my strength was. That's where my past was. But I also wanted something that had more impact from a social perspective. So it was doing some sort of making the world a better place, basically. And so, again, my ideas started shaping a little bit more through these discussions. It was good to have people to put that out to and not be judged on, but at least give and feedback on and kind of push in different directions. Plus sending you stuff all the time, because you have all these champions now that know what you're trying to accomplish, and they're sending you, TED Talks that resonate with that or something. So, so anyway, in that process, one of the women in the group, well, I think I made the statement at one point, I really want to start this type of business, but I've worked for somebody all my life. I haven't really started up a business. I haven't had to raise money for a business. I haven't had to I can build teams and things like that, but there's a lot of pieces and gaps that I had in doing that. And so she said, well, you know what, you need to meet with this gentleman that I know who has successfully started up 2 businesses in Hong Kong in the past, and might just be able to provide some sort of mentorship or advice for you. So we met up. 4 hours later, we were parting ways, and he said, well, how else can I help you? Is there anything else I can do? And I said, well, I need to build a business plan. I need to create a business plan for this. Do you have any advice? And he said, well, I happen to have a business plan that I've been working on. So you're more than welcome to have it and take a look at it and use it as guidance. And so he sent it over to me, and I read through it, and this was for Shift Runner, actually, for Pandu Nation. And I thought to myself, wow, this has, because I had done all that work and figuring out all the things that the direction that I wanted to go, it's almost like somebody's handing this to me, this is kind of strange. So 80 pages later, after reading through the business plan, I contacted him and said, I need to do something with this. I need to participate in this in some way. I would love to help you with the marketing of it. I'd love to, be along for the journey and see how a business is built from the ground up. And in that process, I may be interested in investing in the company as well and having partnership. And so after doing my due diligence and interviewing as many people as possible that knew him and his background, and talking to the other people, he had already had a few people on the team that were involved in the process. It was, kind of a little bit further along in the process. I decided to invest in Shift Runner. So I kind of went at my passion and my dream in a different way. In that process, though, I also was introduced to other people, actually when I was interviewing some of the people, where I ended up investing in another company as well. I'm working for Shift Runner full-time as CMO, but I have started my own company, Toso, which has invested in both of these companies. And for now, my focus will be there, but I think in the future, my goal is to be able to take Toso and hopefully reap some rewards from the investments that I made here, and then invest in other social enterprises as well in the future. So, so anyway, that kind of took me on my journey. It went in a very different direction than I ever intended it to be. There's a few things, there's 5 points, I guess, that I think in all of that story that I would say are my key takeaways. One is, it's not truly reinventing. It's actually, there's a lot of good in what's there already. So you're not having to create something, whether it's a company or a person or whatever. There's a lot of good that's already there. So it's not really reinventing. I would say it's more like reconnecting, refurbishing, whatever you want it to be, which is why we ended up calling our group, which we still have, the Regroup instead of Reinvention Group. So, and I think regroup itself is an interesting way to look at it. Secondly, I think it takes work. It takes being proactive. It takes really trying to understand yourself, trying to understand your strengths, your gaps, what you're passionate about. What you're passionate about may not be what you want to do. Those two things may be different. But it takes understanding that. And it also, I think and I'm not sure how to throw this in there, but from a business perspective, it takes understanding what the business needs as well. So it takes doing some understanding of customers or whatever the business needs are, understanding what your needs are and matching those together. I think that's extremely important, and was a big piece of some of the work that I had done in my previous job, or some of the reinventions, I guess, I had in my previous work. I think once you do the homework and the analysis, always be open to learning new things, because you're always going to learn new things, but also trust yourself, because you have done the homework. And be bold, lean in, as you were saying earlier today. Fourth, I think it's important to find who your true supporters are. So you need the people who are going to be your sounding board, but also your cheerleaders, the people who you know will help you stretch yourself and reach further. For me, it ended up being the regroup. But I think you can find that in your everyday life as well. I think the structure of the regroup is a really good thing, and maybe the structure of a group like this, that you help support each other, is a very good thing. And then the last, and what I kind of will leave with on this, is that the process of reinventing is not a task to be checked off the list. It's not like, okay, I've reinvented myself, we're all done. I think it's an ongoing process. It's something that will go through all of our lives. I think my great aunt at 96 is still reinventing herself today. It's amazing, actually, to see how she's reinventing herself. So, yeah. So I think yeah, that's about it. I think if anybody has any questions or